As I'm sure everyone knows, we are currently at war with Iran. We're probably going to send some ground troops. My opinion is probably after markets close today, so like 4 or 5 o'clock, we'll probably see the ground invasion start. But I don't know. I could be wrong. Maybe it'll be next week. But I think we're going to end up doing a sort of occupation of Iran. And obviously, that's going to need a lot of people. You need a lot of people to throw into the meat grinder if you're going to do an occupation of Iran. So obviously, you're going to need a lot more recruits, or you're going to need to implement a draft. If anyone is curious, I did a short about conscientious objection. It seems OP, so wink, wink. If you're opposed to dying for the Nazi state of Israel, you can check that out. But okay, we're going to go and read this article because apparently the DoD, or sorry, DOW, which already is the acronym for the stock market, I guess, but the Department of War is looking for more recruits, but they're not taking just everyone, right? There's certain things that they are not allowing, and I think it rhymes with broke, and it's woke. It's woke. I think they're trying to avoid anything woke. So, but we'll see what this article says. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe he's accepting everybody now. Maybe war doesn't discriminate against like what your sexual orientation is or whatever. But okay. This is by Bryn Tannehill, and this is the New Republic. Department of War. We'll take anyone for this war. Well, as long as you're not dot dot dot. Based on his new recruitment policies, Pete Hegseth cares more about winning culture wars than the real war he just helped start. When countries get embroiled in a war, they usually cast a wide net for people to join the military and work to keep the ones who are already in. The United States appears to be sending troops for several Marine Expeditionary Units, MEUs, the 82nd Airborne, 101st Airborne, 75th Rangers, 10th Mountain Division. Yeah, guys, they're not playing a ground invasion. They're not playing a ground invasion. No, you guys are silly. Okay, and assorted special ops into the fight in Iran. At the same time, the administration is lowering standards to let more people into the military. Yeah, we gotta get them standards even lower. Except for those they feel are unfit to die honorable for the white, conservative Christian nation they envision. Additionally, in one prominent gaffe, the White House hinted that it might consider reinstituting the draft. This is almost unprecedented historically, with one grim but unsurprising exception. Um, they will need the draft if they want to have enough people to do what I think they're going to do, which is a full occupation of Iran. They will 100% need the draft if they're going to do that. That's why I keep saying read up on conscientious objection. Whenever a country that relies on volunteers to fill the ranks of its armed forces gets involved in a bloody and unpopular war, recruiting success rates decrease, as does the quality of those recruits. No one wants to die for a war they don't believe in or understand, and only people desperate for money tend to join or stay in. Such people usually aren't the most qualified, and the quality of the people who join or stay in drops as a result. Also, where the way that they're messaging, right, the way that they're messaging as like an anti-DEI, anti-woke military or whatever is also going to attract the dumbest of the dumb people. Like, not the smart people don't like believe that that is like a I wouldn't say it like a good thing. I would say like they don't care about that type of shit. But dumb people, they care a lot about that shit. So, yeah, you're gonna get a lot of stupids in there. The usual short-term solutions to recruitment and retention problems are to offer pay increases, bonuses, and incentives, and to lower the standards for recruitment. The people brought in under those circumstances are frequently treated as cannon fodder. Hey, at least the New Republic, I say, yeah, going into the meat grinder, but they're saying cannon fodder. But we got the same idea. During Vietnam, Project 100,000 brought in 300,000 plus troops who would have been previously considered unqualified due to their low IQ scores. We also see this a lot in Ukraine. Um, some commentators mock them as McNamara's misfits after the sitting defense secretary. These troops died in extraordinarily high numbers. Get ready to die for Israel, everybody. Similarly, during the war in Iraq in the early 2000s, the Army offered massive bonuses, introduced stop loss, allowing the military to involuntarily extend service members' active duty, and dramatically lowered recruiting standards. Still, the recruitment and retention situation remained critical until the Great Recession made Iraq look better to a lot of people than the American job market. Yeah. Also get prepared for yeah, worse economic conditions to kind of force people into this industry. Like by the end of this, the only places you're going to be able to work are going to be Lockheed Martin, go into the army, uh, or I don't know, like Polymarket Tech Bro. Those are going to be the only three jobs. Oh, and OnlyFans model. That's all you can do in a late stage capitalism society. But an even more dramatic example is found in Russia's war in Ukraine, where that's what I was talking about earlier, where they have needed to replace in excess of 30,000 to 35,000 recruits per month simply to match combat losses. That's a meat grinder. Like I talk about this becoming a meat grinder, and it probably will, but this is like the Ukraine meat grinder is on a whole other level. For comparison, the U.S. Army aims to recruit about 65,000 per year in a country with nearly three times the population. To achieve this, uh, the Russian government and its local provinces have offered huge bonuses. Sorry, they're talking about, okay. Yeah, to achieve this, wait. Oh, Russia's. Well, so they're talking about Russian recruits. I was talking about Ukraine's recruits because they have to extend, they've had to up the age for recruitment in Ukraine up to like 65 at this point. It's insane. But the Russian government and its local provinces have offered huge bonuses, often equivalent to over a year's worth of pay. They have also lowered standards to an unbelievable degree. They now take people in their 50s with no, well, Ukraine, like I said, is taking people in their like 60s, but with no experience and have inducted at least three serial killer cannibals who had been languishing in prison. Okay, dude. Sorry, I wasn't really expecting the anti-Russia propaganda to show up in this article because I think it was kind of irrelevant. Ukraine is doing all of this stuff and worse. They might not be putting serial killers in there, although they might be, but they definitely are putting a lot of Nazis out there. Like there are a lot of Nazis in the Ukrainian army. And yeah, they don't get the nicest people over there either, and they are also looking for people left and right to kidnap off the streets and throw into the meat grinder of the Russian war. Thus, when the Department of Defense announced on March 25th that it would raise the Army recruitment maximum age from 34 to 42 and let people with certain drug felony convictions join, it caught my attention. These are the sort of changes that the U.S. made during the worst recruiting situations from the mid 2000s during the height of the Iraq insurgency. Sounds like they're preparing for something, if you ask me. These are not the sort of changes the country makes when the military is having no issues finding qualified recruits. Rather, they are made preemptively to prepare for a long, bloody, unpopular war. We saw something similar before the U.S. entry into World War II. When it began drafting people during peacetime and became laxer with physical and medical standards, real life and movie war hero Audie Murphy was five. 5'5" and skinny as a rail, for example, and likely would have struggled with current physical recruitments for Marines. Um, At the same time, in these circumstances, the military usually becomes more reluctant to kick people out. During the war in Iraq, separations for reasons of homosexuality dropped to near zero as the Department of Defense effectively stopped enforcing Don't Ask, Don't Tell. In one apocryphal story during my time in the Navy, a sailor told his captain he was gay right before deployment, to which the commanding officer responded, "No, you're not. Now get on my fucking ship." The dude who was gay was trying to get off the ship, like go home. He was like, you know what? I don't want to be in this war, so I'm gay. They were like, nah, you're coming with us, buddy. Yeah. And trust me. I know that this article is probably going to get into it, but Pete Hegseth's war on DEI is going to go out the window. When rubber hits the road and they need a bunch of people to throw into this meat grinder, um, I 100% assure you that they'll still pretend like they're going to be anti-DEI, but they will be hiring gay people, black people, all the identities, every single identity. They will be hiring them out the wazoo. Um, and they will be much more amenable to those people and their lifestyles, uh, if if they need people to throw into the meat grinder. Okay. At the same time that the US is relaxing standards for many people to prepare for ground war in Iran, it is doing something far more unusual, forcing out tens of thousands of highly qualified service members who want to be there, but who the administration believes are unworthy of the honor of serving their country. This includes women, woke, black, woke, and transgender people. Woke, woke, woke. Man, I'm sorry, you identities, you're not allowed. You identities are not allowed to die for the state of Israel. The only people, the only people that we are going to throw into the meat grinder of this war with Iran is going to be straight white people. Dude, maybe do you guys think Hegseth is maybe like a woke like double agent or something? Like he's actually like a hyper woke like libtard or whatever, and like he's actually trying to spare women, black people, and trans people from dying for the state of Israel. He's like doing like a Schindler's List type situation for these identities. I don't know. Maybe that's what's happening. Maybe Hegseth is our woke king that we always needed. One of Hegseth's big initiatives has been to eliminate the shaving sheets that allow men with medical waivers to refrain from shaving all the way to the skin. The most common cause for needing a shaving sheet is pseudofolliculitis, a dermatological condition primarily suffered by black men. A man with pseudofolliculitis can't shave all the way to the skin, and normally that is not an issue. However, close shaves can result in painful weeping sores and facial scarring. That sounds rough. Hegseth complete revocation of shaving shits offer thousands of black service members an awful choice. Get clean shaven and suffer or be kicked out of the military. It has nothing to do with readiness or capability, like a lot of these stupid fucking rules that they have in the military. Um, a soldier on a shaving sheet is no longer shaving chit. I don't know how to say that, man. I'm just gonna say chit because that's how it's spelled. Is no less effective than one who doesn't need one. It is simply a matter of Hegseth thinking it looks unprofessional. It's not. Ask the Axis powers how much they liked fighting against Sikhs. Okay. Sure. Sure. Okay. It may also have been punishment aimed at black Americans for consistently voting Democrat. It's always sorry, these things it's funny when they put in little like uh ideological points in this or whatever that are kind of unrelated to the article, like when they went like full anti-Russian for a paragraph back then, or they start talking about like the Sikhs versus the Axis powers and stuff here. I always get a little confused when they do this. It's like they're trying to like really pepper in their like liberal bona fides or something in the middle of this article. Uh, the Pentagon has also commissioned a study that appears to have been rigged from the start on whether to continue to let women serve in combat roles. It is unknown what the final policy will look like, but it will almost certainly set women in the military back to a place before 2015 and potentially as far back as 1993 when women were not allowed to fly combat aircraft or serve on ships considered combatant until President Clinton removed the exclusion. Yeah, let's get all those untalented white people back in there. They need jobs, people. They're not able to get jobs in the real world, so we need to give them those jobs back out at war. Finally, the most egregious example is the removal of transgender service members. They are being kicked out regardless of deployability qualifications, performance, cost, or effect on units. The review boards set up for them are effectively rigged such that there is only one potential outcome. Officers kicked out for being transgender are being given so-called JDK discharge codes, usually reserved for communists, people who have committed treason, or those who have engaged in espionage against the United States. I'm gonna be honest. This JDK discharge code sounds rad as fuck. If you got one of those for being like a communist, someone who committed treason against the United States, or involved in espionage against the United States, that sounds rad as hell, dude. Like that sounds like a badge of honor. thereby locking them out of future jobs in defense. In court, the Department of Defense has argued it should be allowed to do this because the President and the Defense Secretary have the authority to claim that transgender people are undeployable, regardless of the evidence against their claim. The fact that transgender service members are the only ones kicked out for medical reasons, even in cases where they had been 100% deployable top performers, has nothing to do with readiness and everything to do with punishing a group of people considered unworthy of the respect that comes from serving in the armed forces. Um, I don't really respect people for serving in the armed forces, to be honest, but I'm sure that these people do, or generally do. The person who wrote this article is super lib coded, it sounds like. But like I said, maybe they'll like they're going to need these people eventually. Like when recruitment, like when you are fighting a war of attrition for like decades or whatever, like you're not going to, in the end, you're not going to be that picky. Like they're going to keep raising the age, like the age limit. They're going like getting older and older. They're going to let all of these people back in. Um, I would say that the worst thing that would probably happen from their perspective is that these people aren't going to want to come back in later because of how they were treated. But yeah. The closest historical parallel to what is happening to transgender people in the military is, surprise, surprise, Adolf Hitler's removal of Jewish troops from the Reichswehr and the Wehrmacht. I'm sure this has happened throughout all of history. I mean, I know like Hitler probably, yes, definitely did all that shit, but like I'm sure that there are plenty of other historical parallels. Let me see if I close some of these if it'll speed up my processing power because it's having some trouble right now. Uh, Let's see. The difference is that Hegseth's policies on transgender people are even more draconian than Hitler's were on Jews in the army. In 1934, those who were half or quarter-blooded Jews were allowed to remain in the German military, how kind of them, as enlisted men or non-commissioned officers, respectively. Up to 150,000. It's so funny having like different allowed positions for somebody based on the like percentage Jewish blood you are. That's like, yeah, that's some obviously Nazi shit. But up to 150,000 people of partial Jewish ancestry were part of the German military during World War II. Yikes. 70 or so full-blooded Jews were pushed out of the military in 1934, while over 4,500 transgender people are being forced out of the American military today. It is also worth pointing out that the only time a country excludes a group. I'm getting real tired of this, man. My fucking headphones always go off in the middle of reading a story. It is always worth pointing out that the only time a country excludes a group of people from the military when engaged in a war requiring massive manpower is when they do not even see those people as being valuable as slaves, cannon fodder, or bullet sponges. They'll get there eventually. They'll think that they're bullet sponges eventually. Only Germany in World War II resorted to this level of exclusion, and only then, with full-blooded Jews, the Wehrmacht was more than happy to take on other lesser groups like Slavs, Ukrainians, Czechs, Poles, and more to draw on all the manpower resources available. This should provide some context for the intentions of the administration towards transgender people going forward. Um, the result of all this is a completely irrational recruitment and retention policy as the U.S. appears ready to plunge deeper into a bloody war that looks unwinnable on the ground. Yeah, nobody said fascists were smart. They're gonna do stupid shit and counterproductive shit even to their own goals. That's why they always fail inevitably, is because the more fascism succeeds, the stupider and more illogical it becomes. The Department of Defense is lowering standards for everyone except for the highly qualified, highly motivated people who belong to minority groups the administration despises. As a result, the military shrinks, the quality of personnel in the military drops, experience is unnecessarily lost, and the quality and size of the pool from which to draw recruits shrinks. The irony is that the people this administration despises won't end up dying in the war it chose. That's what I said. He might be a double agent, like trying to save all of these identities from going into the meat grinder. It would be of some comfort to transgender people if they weren't well aware there are far worse things potentially waiting them than fighting in Iran. Yeah, probably. Um, well, once the Iran fight, like This is one of those weird things where in like we're going to be so bogged down in Iran that it's going to be hard for them to, I think, enact their uh draconian vision at the highest priority level, like their fascism at home, while they're engaging in a full ground occupation of Iran. I mean, I'm sure that they like America's military is like, huge or whatever. I'm sure that to some extent they will be able to, but if like for instance it plunged the country into like civil war or something, right? Um, then all of those troops being abroad like would have to come home to fight the civil war against the uprisings at home and stuff. Like I don't know, there's an element of people being spread so thin that like it makes it like potentially more, it might be potentially less terrible for transgender people and other identities that are going to inevitably be targeted by these fascist goons. But yeah, I don't know. Either Hegseth is a woke double agent who's trying to save all of these trans and gay people from dying in the meat grinder like a modern day Schindler, or or it's just fascism like being stupid and like self-destructive or whatever. It's one or the other.